Is a part of what you're doing now kind of an uphill battle, because the demographic that you're trying to protect, teenagers, they're always going to be sort of attracted to risky and rebellious behavior. Not to say that therefore we should do nothing about vaping, but I guess, yeah, do you find it to be an uphill battle?
It's funny, I mean, so if you ask the average 12-year-old, you know, do you like smoking, or do you like the smell of smoke, or do you like to be around smokers? I mean, I remember when I was probably like 18, and I was going to nightclubs for the first time, and the place would be filled with smoke.
Right.
And, you know, after about 3 hours, your throat would burn, your eyes would burn, you'd go home just stinking, your clothes would stink, you'd have to have a shower, you know, you'd have a kind of husky throat for, half the next day, and you felt like absolute crap. We would never, you know, allow that to happen. Young people today would just walk straight out.
Yeah, they're repulsed by it.
Yeah, they're repulsed by it. And so, you know, how do we get to that point for, sure, they might find something else, and they might find, you know, another way to be risky. But, I mean, this is not kids waking up bored and thinking, oh, how can I rebel against my parents? This is an industry that has, you know, used exactly the same tactics that they used 50 years ago, you know, in a really predatory and organised way, in a way that undermines parents and teachers and, you know, leaders in, you know, in society. And, you know, it's been an organised sort of effort by industry. So if kids were, and we know that also because when we talk to kids, they actually don't know the harms associated with e-cigarettes.
Right.
They've been seeing messages that are often delivered by the tobacco industry on their social media that these things are safe. You know, they're having them promoted to them through social media. They're having them, you know, on TikTok, click here and it's delivered out the back of a Camry opposite a primary school, you know, 3 hours later or whatever. So, you know, I don't believe that kids, there's no evidence, and in fact we've got evidence that is the opposite, that kids have kind of suddenly all woken up interested in e-cigarettes. It's more that the industry
has pushed it on them.
Has really pushed it on them, and they're extremely addictive.
I remember when I used to do stand-up, so many of the comics started vaping weed because they thought that was a much healthier option. You've spoken before about your thoughts on, or you claimed in a lecture that you don't have a position on the legalization of cannabis, but
No.
do you have...
You do your homework.
Well, I try. Do you have a position, though, on the health effects of cannabis use?
Not really, and it's not. And I'm really not trying to like dodge the question. It's more just that it's not a space that Vic Health is in.
Okay.
And so, you know, yeah, I don't particularly have a position. I think it's more of a question probably, you know, for the AMA really.
Right. Fair enough. Okay, let's come back to vaping for a moment. If we take the logic that a product is harmful to young people and therefore the government should prevent young people having access to that product, wouldn't it also be the case then that we should ban fast food? I mean, logically, I mean, forget the political viability for a moment because we know that would be incredibly difficult, almost impossible. But using the same logic, ideally we would also ban fast food outlets, right?
Well, I mean, what governments are always trying to do is look at the, I suppose, balancing risks. And, you know, if you compare fast food to vaping, there's the kind of the strength of the risk and then the strength of the certainty around the risk. So, you know, we know that e-cigarettes are highly addictive. We know that they contain chemicals that are carcinogenic. We know that they are delivered deep into the lungs, and that there's really, you know, emerging evidence that there's no safe level of e-cigarette use. At the same time, you don't need an e-cigarette to survive. You know, kids don't need to kind of, it's not something that's sort of required,
right.
You you could argue that, you know, junk food also similarly, yeah. So
targeted towards children as
Yes,
well. They've
yep.
got playgrounds, Happy Meals have toys in them.
Yep.
So I'm seeing a lot of similarities.
Yeah. Do you think we should ban junk food?
In an ideal world, yeah, I
mean,
do.
I think we could do. Yeah, I think we could do a lot more on junk food. I think the strength of the risk posed in terms of, you know, the lethality of, so how kind of lethal is junk food versus e-cigarettes? It's a bit of a hard comparison to make, but I think on junk food, you know, if we were to ban advertising to kids, you know, limit, you know, the density of junk food around primary schools, you know, not allow them to sell kind of meals that are specifically tailored to kids with toys. There's lots that we could do to reduce, I think, the kind of addictive and predatory nature of junk food, and much of that we are also working on, which we strongly advocate for. I mean, I would love to see, you know, us think about all of those things. You know, the pricing of sugary drinks. Many countries have, you know, an increased price on sugary drinks. They use that money to then subsidise cheaper food for families that are struggling to afford good food. We could do that in Australia.
Right.
Banning advertising to children. I mean, why?
Haven't we done that? Aren't fast food outlets not allowed to advertise during children's shows?
Yeah, so we've kind of taken a half step, and it was a good half step, don't get me wrong, but, you know, there are countries that like ban outright, including in the digital space, advertising of junk food to kids, period. And there are a lot of loopholes in the rules we have in Australia, which, you know, again, it was a step forward. I'm not criticising it, but there's still a lot more we could do. So, yeah, I think we have to look at all of the challenges that kids face. I mean, e-cigarettes have come out of nowhere. They're highly addictive. I think addictive in a different way to junk food, but I take your point about the addictive nature of junk food, and you know, the emerging evidence around its risks in terms of
Carcinogenic. Right?
Yeah, are extremely concerning.
Did you enjoy that? Well, then why not consider subscribing and supporting this channel? We need all the help we can get. My producer, the guy filming right now, he lives in his car. And quite frankly, it's, you know, he's starting to smell. It's tough. It's tough to be around him. But the more of you that subscribe and view, we can get him a place to rent. Doesn't have to be a nice place, okay? He's living in his own filth right now. We don't expect a palace, but just get him a home. Something with a bathroom, for the love of God. Please subscribe.